Start, baby.
Oh man, we gotta move this up. Sorry, y'all. Still don't look like that's good enough. Welcome back, Pastor Steve. How's it going, sir?
Fantastic.
That's good to hear. That's good to hear.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's another 7:45 p.m.
On
Tuesday.
time, Jack. That's amazing.
Listen, God is good. New Year's resolution, be on time.
You know it takes 30 days to break a habit?
Thought it was 60, but that's okay. I think it's probably 60 now, but 30 days to break a habit. What about to start a habit, to start a new one?
Well, that's what's happening is that you're actually starting a new one
By
in the 30-day, but
breaking
actually being separated from apparently the old habit. It's not like you're still doing it. It's just to actually get out of it.
I got you.
So you have to already start something new to get rid of the old.
Yeah.
I guess things become new.
You're funny. I guess you can resist something for 30 days, but did you actually start anything like new? Like, let's say I may have stopped eating certain things that are bad, which is actually good, very good.
Yeah.
But did I implement exercise? Did I implement the resistance is still good, by the way. You broke the habit of eating those things bad. I'm just saying that maybe the newer habit is, continuing on the different
like
foods.
eating more fruits and vegetables.
Yeah. You get it. Stop acting like you don't understand what I'm saying. Anyways, how you doing? Did you end up catching the Bills game?
Of course I watched the Bills game.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Of course I did.
I forgot, dude. Right when you text, you and Brittany are the worst. When she started watching the game is when the Bills started losing. Oh, by the way, Jaden said, I'm done watching the Bills.
For real? His son, kid's only 3 or 4 years old.
4 years old said,
He said, I'm
done watching the Bills. I can't do this. I want to go back to watching my TV show. I'm done with this. And Brittany was just like, just calm down. It's going to be okay. He's like, no, I'm done. When I turn 5, maybe I can go back to watching it. But
he didn't say all that.
Okay.
That's hysterical.
That's Brittany, yeah. So
well, I think most of Buffalo was like, I'm done. But we'll be right there this Sunday.
Absolutely.
Right there this Sunday. Good old faithful. Anyways, I'm rocking Sabres tonight.
It's a bye. They got a bye.
I'm rocking Sabres.
I see you. How they doing?
Fifth, they're 500 right now.
There we go. Just stay above.
They beat Rangers last night.
Stay above.
Rangers are like, I think, leading their division or whatever.
There we go. All right, so we're back. Another Tuesday. That means we got a live discussion. Can't wait. Last week was pretty good. I noticed that on live, at least from your Facebook, we didn't get that many people watching during, but on the playback, we got a bunch of views on that. So I think they really enjoyed the conversation about generational curses. So that's good. Even if people aren't watching it on live, they check it out on the playback. We just want to get those people from your Facebook to the YouTube channel. But I'm glad to see that people are watching.
You want them to subscribe, right?
Well, it's not just about that. It's about they can just watch more content.
The content, I get it.
Yeah, and you have a bunch of other stuff on your.
I get it.
Facebook.
I get it.
So anyways, we're here. I normally don't know what's going on until about 5 minutes, and we literally didn't know what we was going to talk about until like 2 minutes. But we are here, Pastor. Take it away. I allow you to be my armor bearer, my adjutant.
He allows me is crazy.
Yeah,
him to even utter those words is ridiculous. He allows me.
Yeah, I gotta allow you.
Anyways, as we know, Tuesdays is live, and I run the show on Tuesday night, and we're gonna get things going. Again, as always, we're here to dialogue. We might be strongly convinced in what we believe, Jack and I. But that doesn't mean that we're not reasonable enough to have ourselves to be considerate to have a good conversation with people. And so when we're up here talking on this platform and we're sharing things, what our expectation would be is for you as an audience to kind of like respond, give us some feedback, pushback, give us what you're thinking, and let's dialogue about some things, because a lot of times when we hear information, we don't hear it in the proper context of how it should be heard. There might be certain pieces of the information that's lacking, or there's no follow-up with support of the original statement in order for somebody to justify their claim that they're making. And so somebody resists hearing that claim because the individual that delivered the claim doesn't follow up properly, doesn't add enough substantial information to help provide some good, thought-provoking things. So we want to be able to have dialogue during this next 45 minutes to an hour regarding the subject matter that we're going to deal with. And that is thinking about the phrase, the intolerance of love. Let me now explain to you why that title is being used. The intolerance of love. A lot of times in society, people assume that love is being offered when we tolerate what somebody else says or does. Would you agree?
Yes.
So the idea then for somebody to say that they love the other individual, that other individual then might perceive that to mean that they will never be corrected by the person that says, I love you. Or they'll never be challenged on something that they want to say or something that they have done, because the person that says that they love them should not be, quote unquote, judge them or correct them or make them feel like, make them feel uncomfortable for the way they want to believe something or the way they want to do something. And that's a problem. It's a problem in society if we are to think that everybody should accept what we say and believe. It's a problem. That means then that there could be no differences. Or what I mean by that, there could be no room for a actual truth.
Yeah, I was just about to say, it's not even logically possible.
Correct. So we want to say the intolerance of love, because love does not tolerate everything. It doesn't. It might tolerate a person, but that doesn't mean that I have to tolerate what that person does. I can love an individual and completely disagree with something that they said.
You can love an individual and completely disagree with something they said.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, the person that said it should feel comfortable enough to understand that just because I disagreed with them doesn't mean I don't value them or love them.
So do you think now in this, well, I guess you kind of said it, but in this society, though, they can't separate the two. Disagreement equals.
It's very difficult for people nowadays, the way society is being shaped to think, that they can't separate the fact that somebody can still respect them and love them without having to agree with everything that they say. That's a hard thing to deal with, because nowadays it's instant hatefulness, or it's a hate crime to disagree with somebody's belief system.
Yeah. I was about to say, intolerance nowadays equals hate. If you're intolerant of something, then that's hateful.
Correct. Or I'm making them uncomfortable with themselves, and so I'm jeopardizing their well-being because I've made them uncomfortable, which is even more methodically evil. Because you mean to tell me that I'm supposed to allow an individual who might have some problem in their mentality, that their mentality might misconstrue things in their mind, and that they start to believe the ideas that are floating around in their head? And because I can't disagree with the ideas that are floating in their head, I might jeopardize them to feel uncomfortable within themselves, that I have to agree with them so that they can feel comfortable with those ideologies that they possess in their head? That's crazy. That means I should make a madman feel comfortable with his ideas.
I think we've taken away the good things in debate.
I agree.
Just healthy debate. In school, we used to have debate in high school. It was something that was fun to people. They enjoyed seeing both point of views. You would argue for this point. You would understand how to set up your arguments. You would understand terms mean certain things. Whereas nowadays, people don't want to debate. We literally can have evidence to something, and people will say it's uh, manipulated. I mean, we're to the point now where I don't know if you paid attention to any of this. Now they think people are cloned. Just to the point where I'm just saying that anything nowadays, we convinced our mindset, if it doesn't agree with what we believe because we're so passionate in our belief, you have to be wrong. I will not listen.
Mhm.
And I think going back to that debate, we've in a debate, the ones that I've taken a part of, there was no ties. There was like a point system, whatever the case may be. Somebody won, somebody, and it didn't mean that you're necessarily right, but at least you argued your point better. It at least allowed you to understand.
Yeah.
Maybe I just didn't do a better job.
Sure.
In doing that.
Yeah.
But what we've created now is, at least from what I've seen when I deal with some things in media, we just don't even have the patience to work through conversing. It's just the moment we've said yes or no to a question, we're done, checked out. And for me, it makes it difficult to talk about anything religious, anything moral, anything, because you're starting to allow the media or whatever to shape you to say, don't debate, have your feelings, is strong enough and passionate. If they don't accept this or you, boom, be done with them. They're hateful. And it's like, but we're better when we're dialoguing, when we're having conversations. Not somebody who just wants to devalue. I'm not talking about that.
Right.
But a person who's seeking clarity, asking questions, wanting to know about terms, breaking things down. When you don't want to have that and just state, you should just know better. It's common sense. I can't believe you're not trying to have that conversation. I just think it's just a detriment to information, period.
I think also, to your point, what you're saying is that people need to develop that ability to accept when somebody pushes back on their statements.
Yeah.
You can't just want people to accept your pushback. You have to also accept other people's pushback.
Yeah, and which I want to state on for the record, Christians don't do a very good job.
I agree.
They are adamant about the gospel. They are adamant about addressing sins, and then the moment someone pushes back on them about a certain verse or a certain thing, well, what about your God doing this and what about that? They're so quick to be the very thing that they shouldn't be. Like, well, whatever, you're gonna go to hell then, or whatever you're gonna do.
And a quick snafu of well, you don't believe anyway, so get out of here. Your opinion doesn't matter. You know what I'm saying? And again, it's so crazy that a Christian, like me personally, I love to listen to a lot of people. I love to listen to how people think, and I love listening to intelligence. I don't care where it comes from. It's from an atheist. Intelligence is intelligence, meaning when a good intellectual statement is made and it makes sense and it's rational. I don't care if it comes from somebody that completely doesn't believe in anything. They're just an atheist or not, whatever, because I can still learn from that. I can still glean from that.
Absolutely.
But if, a brother and I was talking 2 or 3 days ago, and we were talking about how the early, like, he was raised in the church. I was raised in the church. He's like 20 years older than me, but he was saying how we look back. Huh?
If he's 20 years older than you,
we're looking back on, some of the things that churches would make you want to believe. Just,
oh, you gotta tell me something, man. Give me something.
Oh, we were just talking about oh man, there was a lot of things we were talking about, but we got into the subject about the devaluing of humanity Christians sometimes cast forth. Like he was saying, back in his day, they would cut your hair in the church because they didn't believe in going to a non-believing barbershop
Sheesh.
Right. And I understand that because there's a lot of people that like, I'm only going to use a Christian barber, or I'm only going to use a Christian, whatever. You don't have a Christian bank, but you bank in an atheistic or a non-believing bank. So I mean, where is the rationale behind that? So we were talking about how like earlier the earlier days of how the church would subject its members to crazy ideas as if only Christians have all of the answers. And it's like, no, we don't. Yes.
Danielle says, great topic.
Who?
Danielle.
Yep. What's up, Danielle?
And I was just thinking when you said that maybe they were thinking like maybe they can control their circle. Maybe.
Sometimes it's a control thing. Absolutely. Yep. What's going on
On YouTube?
YouTube.
Are you on YouTube? Looks like
okay. Sword of the Spirit is
Weimer.
Yeah.
Yep. Pastor
Okay.
Weimer.
He says entitled to our own opinion, but not fact.
Facts.
And he says, yes, we need to learn how to have genuine conversations about real difficult issues.
Agreed.
And then he says, exactly, we have to approach conversation with attitude. We may be wrong. Learn to repeat what the other person said before responding. This allows you to actively listen and think of a response.
Right. And
it's an excellent topic.
And I mean, I know we're
Pastor
we're still working with the whole intolerance of love, and we're gonna get back there.
All of that is kind of like the spirit of the intolerance is what we're dealing with right now. Like the different subject matters show forth the spirit of you know what I'm saying, the intolerance of love, because we want to end on a high note about the power behind the intolerance of love.
I just think too, just that last comment addressing about
read it again.
Last
comment.
Yeah, like just being able to approach conversation with the attitude that we may be wrong.
Right.
Nobody thinks that they're wrong, because when they repeat information, they're confident in what they're stating, right? But I like the mindset to be able to state, because you stated earlier too, like we want to be able to have dialogue, which means we're open to the fact we could be wrong.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Nobody goes into a conversation thinking that they're wrong. Like, I don't know nobody who's just like, man, I'm wrong. Let me still have this conversation. Like, no, the idea is I studied this information, whether it was 5 minutes, 5 years, like I've been studying this information. But the idea to sit back and to say, like, you know what, I could be wrong. There's something that I could learn from this, and it could put me in a place to be able to better understand something, or better to see a different point of view. I think it allows some of the things that, the Bible talks about, in what, 1 Corinthians 13?
As far as what?
Love.
Yes, 1 Corinthians 13.
Because ultimately what I was going to get to, and I don't know if you're transitioning, is that most of the time you hear people say, well, love is an action word.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
It's like a verb. We need to see some kind of action. And for me, then I would say, well, what does that look like? Can love be silent sometimes and just letting someone talk, like allowing them to speak, actually trying to hear the points that they're saying? Like, is it loving for me to really actually be quiet and listen to everything you say without saying your heart is hard and you're not hearing nothing I'm saying, you need to listen to wise counsel? I guess I would want to open that up to the floor more, even to you. When we hear this idea that people say love is an action word, right? And still dealing with the intolerance of love, but just saying love is an action word. You have to show me these things. So the idea could be like, so if you're not agreeing with me in your action, Pastor, then how can you love me? How can you say you and me can disagree on something? If love is an action, your action to me should be, I accept what you're doing. I accept, like, where is the action that you can say you love me in a disagreement?
Well, I think if you were to just take a snapshot in that moment and judge that as love or not love, that would be kind of ignorant.
Okay.
Because I can't just me simultaneously disagreeing with you, right, could project the idea that I don't love you. The issue needs to be, how do I deal with you after we separate and we come back together? When I'm alone now and I'm thinking about the conversation, am I saying, man, that dude's bunk, like bunk that dude, like, man, I'm washed up with him? Or am I saying to myself, okay, I know he's passionate or she's passionate about what she's saying, right? And it completely goes against what I believe in. But now when we come back together again, I should still embrace this individual. Always remember, the one thing that Jack and I always live on the foundation is this. We are a Christian should always remember the value in everyone's personhood, being made in the image and likeness of God. And because I have the mind of God that understands God has created all of humanity in his image and likeness, all humanity has value in their personhood. And so I should always seek to find a way to preserve and honor that personhood. That does not mean I have to agree with everything, but when we do have a disagreement and we separate, and in my mind, am I saying, man, I'll never deal with that dude again? Or am I saying, you know, they're pretty passionate, you know what I'm saying? And I'm pretty passionate, you know what I'm saying? Maybe the conversation got a little sparky, right? But I have to remember that's still, God still loves that person, right? And if God still loves that person, is it my selfishness? Is it my pride? Is it my, man, I'm not going to let this person think they're going to win this conversation? Is it all of that where I can, you know, not have the heart to grow bigger into understanding, you know, what's greater is going to be for me to be able to still, you know, embrace that person, still respect that person, still have a conversation, still have lunch with that person or whatever, even though they completely disagree with me, right? So when I said that in that snapshot picture and say, you know, when I disagree, is that going to be the snapshot of me loving that person or not loving not loving that person? I think that would be a little ignorant of us to do that.
To just look at one situation.
That one moment, right? Like, so even if that moment is like 2 hours of just debating back and forth, you know, trying to win or find a way, or whatever it may be. And then when we part, nobody left changed in their mind or in their belief. And to think like, well, I didn't love that person, or that person's looking at me like, well, they didn't show any love to me. They weren't being Christian. No, I sat there for 2 hours and had a good conversation or had a debate with that person, whatever. And now what happens when I leave that person? Do I go and spread rumors about that person? Do I go, you know, back home and think about how, you know, I want to annihilate this person? And then when I see him again, I look for ways to annihilate them in a debate or in a discussion to embarrass them. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like that now has to be what I resonate in my mind to understand how I want to be able to still demonstrate love towards that person.
Wow. Not tolerating
what they believe, but
system.
tolerating them, their personhood. I understand there is value in every human being. I don't care what they're doing, what they say, what they think. I still understand there's value in that person because Christ died for them.
I think that's good. A good separation. Real quick before you read these comments, I think that's a good separation to keep playing in the audience mind and in our minds, that the tolerance is in the fact that you are a human being created in the image and likeness of God, and there's value. Therefore, I will tolerate you, meaning I will respect you, value you.
Yep.
But your decisions that you make, which will have some kind of moral benefit or consequence, we don't have to come to that same agreement.
Right.
And my love isn't whether or not I agree with that moral choice that you make, but rather how I treat you consistently. And I think there's more verses to say how you treat people, how you deal with them throughout on a day-to-day basis, not just like you said in that screenshot moment, will show more verses on love than it would by just saying, he agrees with me, she agrees with me, therefore I know you love me. Like, what is that? You know,
right. You got statements?
Yeah. Chris says, yeah.
Hey, Chris.
And then the sword of the spirit says disagreement is not always bad. If my spouse agreed with all my decisions or ideas,
I'd be broke.
One of us is not needed.
Huh? What happened? No, read. I love you. Read. I was just agreeing. Right?
He said something great about his spouse.
Of course. One of us is not needed. Sometimes you need another point of view that comes from the sword of the spirit.
Yeah.
And then,
that iron sharpens iron. Pastor Ryan, I'm with you.
Amen.
And then this is Johnny Spencer.
Oh yeah, Johnny Spencer. Yeah,
it's not Spencer.
Spicer.
Yeah.
Is it pastor?
Minister.
Minister.
chief musician,
Okay.
chief musician in the house.
He says, even when we answer or debate a question, it's not just a question, but a questioner with a soul that God loves.
Amen.
Amen. Yes. Yes. And
You got all the face or the YouTube comments?
she did.
Oh, yeah.
And I think to that point, that's why we must be able to separate the fact that, because nowadays, Minister Spicer, we come to the point where people are saying, if you did not agree with, like, let's say somebody says, I believe in multiple gods, like they're just multiple gods, right?
Polytheist.
Yeah, they're poly. This guy's funny. Yes, yes, they believe in polytheism, and we see from the Shema in Deuteronomy 6:4, but we also see it in the Gospels, in Matthew and also in Mark, referencing when Jesus is responding back to the scribe about how there's only one true God. People will nowadays will say, like, well, if you don't come to the same conclusion, if you don't accept me and agree with, and accepting me is agreeing with me and tolerating me the fact that I believe in multiple gods, you don't love me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why we kind of titled this Intolerance of Love, because no, love will be shown in how I treat you in this discussion, not just in this discussion.
And
after
a consistent pattern of how I treat you daily.
Correct. And being able to separate that out and state that I can still show you love, but not have to agree with your conclusion. But I think Christians still need to understand that point that you referenced, that's still an individual that you're dealing with. Sometimes we get into the mindset where we think love at times is the gospel. If the gospel is the thing that can save us and that can change us, it's the most impactful thing in our lives. If I'm given that information, then I love you. Well, Paul says something kind of different. He says that some people preach this gospel messages out of their own vanity, like they're out of their own. They just want to be puffed up. Now he says, "Hey, the gospel message is still changing, and I'm still happy it's going forth, but that doesn't mean that you love somebody because you do it. So you do need to pay attention to that questioner. You do need to pay attention to that soul. But I still want us to be able to draw that line and state that I can still love you, but we don't have to end on the same thing. And society nowadays is telling you, if you're not in our camp and come to that agreement, you don't love me, you hate us, depart, move. You stay on this side and we're on that side. And that's not healthy.
It's not healthy.
It doesn't help anyone, doesn't help the church, doesn't help. And it doesn't allow for discussion like this. Like, as you stated, I love discussion. I love dialogue. I don't care for yelling. I will put up with it for the sake of the discussion. But that's what I love, because to me, people live based upon the information that ultimately comes from these discussions. Like, you live your life accordingly. So I think it's important, but you definitely can love, at least so far from what you stated, that you can love while still not agreeing with the end conclusion.
I want to bring up a scenario. I want to use this quick illustration and then land in a place for us to think currently how we see society. And then we have to ask ourselves, are we allowing ourselves to be played into this game that's going on out there? But let me first use the illustration. So you and I were talking before we got on, and I was talking about a child, right?
Yep.
Now, if I have a newborn child, okay, let's just start at 1 year old. It's 1 year old, okay? Let's say I have a 1 year old child, and that 1 year old child wants me to feed it something sweet every day, something very, very sweet, something very, very sweet. And I'm constantly feeding it. And then it's 2 years old now. It still wants me to feed it sweet, sweet, sweets, right? It's 3 years old, sweet, sweet, sweets. My question to everybody out there, and you also, is, am I being a loving parent, allowing this 1 year old, who becomes a 2 year old, who becomes a 3 year old, to constantly be constantly fed sweets because this is what this baby wants? It wants sweets, 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 sweets. Am I being a loving parent, allowing that to happen? Now, when I look at the broader picture and I think about what I have done to the child, right? would people be able to look at me and say I was loving, that I was loving that child, or was I given into the pressure of what this baby might be feeling, and I don't want that baby to feel that way, so I'm gonna just give them what it wants, not thinking of the long term. Y'all get what I'm saying here? You get what I'm saying?
I follow the illustration.
Because I want to go somewhere with that, but you see how I don't believe a parent would look at themselves as being not loving if they restricted the child's intake of sugar. I think the parent would be very, very I don't know what word to use, but I think they understand they're doing the best for the child and they're loving the child by restricting the amount of sugar and making sure the child is getting the proper nutrients so that the child becomes a strong and healthy individual later, right?
Right.
Now, if we understand that, and I think 99% of human beings, no matter where you come from in life, I think 99% of human beings would understand that's a loving parent restricting how much sugar this child takes in at an early age.
Okay.
They would understand it. That's good parenting.
Yeah.
That's good parenting.
Because they have the knowledge of the expert, which is the doctor, telling them, boom, 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 boom.
Yes.
This is what you should do.
And
yes.
they understand that. They
Yes.
understand that the child needs to grow healthy, and they love the child. They want the child to have a beautiful future, right?
Right.
That's how they're perceiving their love for the child. They want that child to grow and have a beautiful future. And they understand by making sure I restrict how much sugar intake they have at an early age, they start adapting their child to eating healthier and nutritious food so the child is strong to have a nice future. The parent believes strongly that they love their child by doing that. Now, why is it so hard? Let's supersede to now, right? As adults, having conversation, having discussion, dialogue, right? And we have beliefs that we understand aren't as helpful or they're not as healthy for us to have. And somebody else wants to disagree because they see that idea is not the best idea. It doesn't help society as good as it could. So I want to push back. I don't want to agree with that because I feel like I want to see people better if they were to make these choices. Why is it that we don't judge that person as a loving person? Instead, we judge that person as a hateful person for disagreeing with an individual's belief system that they know is harmful.
Okay.
Do you see what I just did?
Yes.
Okay.
I have. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry.
Okay.
I have two
Okay.
responses.
Okay. That's cool. But I want to make sure you saw what I did there.
Yes, I saw the line of reason from the parent
To now society and as adults conversing.
Yes.
Okay. The sword of the spirit says exactly. The gay community says that you have to love not only them but their lifestyle. Otherwise, you're intolerant. Do you not really love?
You do not really love. Yeah, I think that
I want to go there with you, Pastor Weimer, but I gotta.
I think that in most experiences that we've had in the church regarding the gay community, that most of the time it is that if you don't accept me as this, then you can't love me. There are some very rare and few who will look at how you deal with them on just a regular basis. But I think from what we've seen and I've seen, the answer is if you don't agree with this, then you can't love me because this is a part of who I am. Here's what I'll say to that, though. To me personally, it just goes back to what I said about healthy debate and conversing. A comment like that should be a normal comment to discuss and dialogue, where somebody will see that comment and say, look at this comment. This comment here is hateful. It's it goes against like who I am, what I stand for, and I don't want to deal with a person like this. And that has fostered and come into play only because we haven't had any dialogue. Like we've pushed this mindset to say either you stand on this side or you stand on that side, instead of saying, listen, here's my source, going back to like that debate team. here's the source that I reference here, right? Boom. They can say, oh, I agree with this Bible as well. From there, we can say, okay, cool. What happens if I have like these 5 verses? How do you interpret these 5 verses according to, morality here? They may say, you know what? I don't have an answer for those verses, so I don't really care for the Bible. Now then the whole discussion becomes, is the Bible reliable? But at least we're having conversation and a discussion versus you don't love me. It is what it is. You can't hate me. I would never think somebody doesn't love me. Like I would never tell somebody you have to accept me as something in order for you to love me, unless it's a human being. That's the only thing that I can say. Like, if you don't love me as a human being, then I can say, or you can't, if you can't accept me, let me say that as a human being, then I'll say, then I don't see how you can love me. If you feel like, yeah, I'm superior.
Well, you wouldn't be able to.
Yeah, you wouldn't be able to.
You wouldn't be able to. If you don't acknowledge an individual's personhood, I mean, just like,
and that
like,
we're equal on the personhood.
Yeah,
like
if
there's
you
equality.
You couldn't love.
Then you can't.
You can't.
Anything else that from choice or whatever, anything from a choice, you can never say that I can't love you accordingly.
Mhm.
It would have to be my day-to-day action. Even if somebody tells me that he hates me because this and that, for me, I'm always still going to see how does my day-to-day, if love is an action, I'm looking at my day-to-day, because the Bible will show me what it looks like to love. Did you feed? Did you give water? Were you patient? Were you merciful? It doesn't say you got into one discussion, somebody asked you a question,
Right.
yes or no, and you're done.
Right.
So I think that
I want to address something on the other side to this.
Okay.
I know you have two. You got to still give me the 2 answers or the talking points about my illustration. I do want to touch bases on what Reimer just said about the gay community and how you just responded to that. I want to piggyback on that, but go ahead.
John Bynum says Acts 15:39.
Brother Bynum, what's going on, John?
Barnabas disagrees with Paul over John. Mark was real, however, reconciled their differences later in love.
Absolutely.
I was going to bring that up later. I like that. There's another debate in the Bible I want to bring up. We'll bring up in a little bit. So thank you, John. Appreciate you for that.
Then Chris says the cancel culture is ungodly.
Okay.
Across the board.
Yeah.
Across the board.
Yeah,
because you'll get canceled.
From Christians.
Yeah, in organizations. So cancel culture. I'm across the board.
Okay. So
you say you want to address?
Yeah. So the challenge nowadays when it comes to the discussion that we're having about the intolerance or the tolerance regarding the word love. Okay. Mm-hmm. There's this 2-prong thing happening in society. The narrative that's being created in social media, the narrative that's being created from the political platforms, is this. Number one, slowly, and just stay with me, y'all. Just stay with me. Number one.
It's gonna be a while.
No, it's not. I'm gonna make it really quick.
Okay. Number
one, we see slowly the reinterpretation of freedom of speech.
Yes.
We see the redefining of that article, okay, in our Constitution, that the freedom of speech is slowly being redefined to fit a narrative that is being polarized in our society, mostly in America, okay? Because it's because that's our Constitution. But so we have to think about that, because freedom of speech is slowly being dictated to the government telling you what you have to say.
Okay.
You understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like you have to say certain things, and that's covered under the freedom of freedom of speech or expression. That's number one. Number two is that within that, the second prong is that mental health, which I love and has to be addressed, needs to be dealt with. But mental health is becoming a narrative to mean that I need to keep you mentally comfortable by agreeing and tolerating what you think and believe. That when I disagree with you, I create you becoming uncomfortable. The problem with that is you can't have freedom of expression without having people feeling uncomfortable. You can't have it both ways. It's impossible for you to say, you must keep me comfortable and you can have freedom of speech, because you're going to feel uncomfortable with what people say.
Yeah.
And if the identity of mental health is wrapped up in my identity, that you have to respect my identity based on how I perceive myself and how I perceive life and what I say about myself and what I say about life and what I want to do, and you can't disagree with any of that, that's a problem. I should not be held hostage on my expression on the basis of not making you feel uncomfortable. So the two-prong is the mental health issue and not being able to allow people to feel uncomfortable based on what I disagree with regarding them. And number two, the landscape and the political field regarding how they're redefining freedom of expression or freedom of speech. Okay. Again, we still got to go back to my illustration. What you want to say? You have a statement.
I didn't see Brittany's thing. She said,
Oh, we're good. So go on.
She said, "What about
You just made me uncomfortable.
Oh.
I'm about to. No, just go ahead.
What about you being black? It's a part of your identity, and some feel that is a part of their identity."
Yeah. So
Wait,
so,
what? What?
Relax.
What?
She said, "What about if you're black?
Yeah.
That's a part of your identity.
Yeah.
What happens if you don't accept that?" We're going back to the fact that how we talked about, if you don't accept me, then therefore you don't love me, type of deal.
Yeah.
So I think with that,
And her question is what?
if you make the comparison to somebody in the gay community and state that if you don't accept them, I can still love them even without accepting them, but still value them. She's asking, when it comes to, okay, what about a black person then? If that's a part of them, if you can't accept me for, being black and in my identity, then could you walk away and still say that you still love me?
Okay.
What we've stated early on in the discussion is this: no matter what, no matter freedom of, people can hide behind freedom of speech. They can hide behind, they've used this Bible to say a bunch of things to devalue people. If it does not show that this person is created in the image and likeness of God, meaning that they are a person, that there is no superiority or inferiority amongst that individual, same personhood, personality type, then there would be a devaluing. So for me, you couldn't tell me I don't accept you as a black person, because that's not that would be me as a human being. If somebody says, I don't accept you as an Italian, I don't accept you but I can still love you. Like, I may disagree with you as an Italian, but I love you. You couldn't, because that's me as a human being. I don't get to, change that. Like, that's me as a human being.
Then I think that Brittany's question is going to make you have to qualify.
Well, yeah. And I get that.
You do understand that you're not, it sounds like you don't want to go there. I'm happy to go there. But to answer Brittany's question, you'd have to qualify then.
Yes, I get
the other
that.
part.
For me, I would state
this guy.
This. I would state this.
I'll answer for myself.
Yes, he will answer for himself. For me, the person has to be shown humanity, and as a human being, as long as you can show in your action, not just in your words. A lot of people in their words can say, I love you, but love should be shown in action. And we have verses that will show that. Like I said, feeding people, giving people water, clothing people, helping out the widow, but not just those things. You have verses, like I said, in 1 Corinthians 13, where it actually addresses being patient with people, being kind, enduring things. Like, these are all part of conversations. These are all part of a day-to-day grind. I really actually want to go there. Is that all right if I just read that very quickly?
What? Oh, go ahead.
Because 1 Corinthians 13, it talks about how it doesn't rejoice, like love doesn't rejoice in iniquity. Well, it doesn't behave itself unseemingly. I guess the point I'm just trying to make, and I'll stop.
You're kind of like you're kind of like going around the mulberry bush. You're really not hitting where it needs to go.
No. My point is this.
I understand your point.
No, love gets vaguely used. So if we are going to define love, and then you want to define the other piece, I'm okay with that. But the point is, when we address love, and if I'm saying like love a person for humanity, I don't like just using the term without showing what that's going to look like. And what I'm saying is, as a human being, you're going to endure them. You're not going to seek injustice. You're not going to, these are all the things listed.
But this does not answer Brittany's question. It doesn't. And I'm going to tell you why.
It does if it's
It doesn't
attached to a
because-
human
but
being.
But she associated the difference between the gay community and the black community. And you're stating that black community,
I'm saying a human being.
So gay person's not a human being?
They are.
Right. So we said that how could you not accept me and still love me? She's using that in reverse psychology with a black person. I don't have to accept your blackness, but I can accept you as a person. You're saying me being black is who I am. I am a human being. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
This is what I'm going to say. This is what and I want you all to hear me. I'm about to make some definitives now.
Okay.
When I talk about a black person or a white person or an Asian person or an Hispanic person, they are genetically bound to that identity. Genetically. You with me?
I'm with you.
Therefore, we are not splitting hairs about that's a person who has a Hispanic identity. No, they are actually a Hispanic DNA. They're actually, that's who they are. You follow what I'm saying?
I follow you.
What I'm going to now say is that within certain communities, such as the gay community, that is not a genetic thing. And we know this. That is a personified ideology that somebody is holding about themselves, which I can easily recognize that I don't agree with that, but I still see your personhood, that you're still a human being, and I'm going to value you and I'm going to respect you. That ideology is what I don't have to accept. That is not a genetically associated person, or that's not a genetically associated identity to your personhood. It is your ideology. It's the way you think. It's the way you're perceiving yourself. There is no gene that associates you as a human to be that. You understand what I'm saying? And that's where I can easily make the distinction or the separation. I have to accept you as a black man. I can't separate you and say, well, I accept you, but I don't accept your blackness. There is no such thing as that. I'm a black person.
Because it's in the genetics.
It's in the genetics. When I talk to an individual who identifies himself with the gay community, I'm still going to love that person. I'm going to love their personhood, but I don't have to agree with their ideology of how they identify with themselves. As strongly as they may feel about this genetic identity, it doesn't scientifically match up. And so therefore, I can make the distinction between the two. But again, that speech that I just said could be perceived as hate speech right now. But I understand, I know where I'm going with how I will embrace an individual in their personhood without having to embrace their ideology.
So let me ask you this. Then in that same discussion, somebody who is black but has spirituality, right? Like utilizes spirituality, right? I'm black. I go to the ancestors, the gods, things like that. And now
that's an ideology. That's not his genetics.
Okay. So that's the way
his
that
ideology.
you address them.
Yes.
Okay.
He's created in the image of he's created in the image and likeness of God, not for that kind of ideology, though he might subscribe to that ideology.
You see how it can be very convoluted considering they're merging blackness with.
Again, that's ideology. Okay.
I know, but it's not going to start off ideology. It's going to start off.
I understand that,
human.
But as long as we can have this discussion,
yeah.
Because your belief system is not a genetically passed on thing. Your belief system is a nurtured thing. How you identify with yourself can become a nurtured thing. How you start perceiving is a nurtured thing. It's not a genetic thing. You follow what I'm saying? So me having black skin was not nurtured. That is my genetics. So you have to embrace that. You have to embrace me as a black person. But for somebody to decide over time that they're identifying with something, an ideology about themselves and how they perceive themselves, that is a nurtured thing. I don't have to agree with it, but I'm still going to embrace you as a person. I'm still going to love you and respect you over and over again.
So since we're
chop it up, y'all.
Since we're there,
tear me apart if you want to tear me apart. I'm good with that.
Whoa. Okay.
It says Corey K says we are no longer.
Whoa! Wait a minute. What? What?
Oh my
He
goodness.
said we are no longer in the sticks and stones may break my bones, but names will never hurt me era. A bunch of sensitive people in the world who don't like to have real conversations and jump to your opinion isn't mine, then you're wrong.
Okay,
Yes.
Kadish. Okay, Kadish.
I agree with that. But
you know what that is, right?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Time honey.
Yeah.
If you keep following the logic, everything still gets passed down from an informational standpoint. At one point in time, we were able to have these discussions, tough discussions, real things where we were able to separate facts between opinions. We understood uncomfortable is another word that means okay, that things aren't going to always go in my favor, but uncomfortable doesn't mean wrong. It means
that's how it's perceived now. You're making me feel uncomfortable, and you should. Okay,
I got it.
My bad.
I guess ultimately what I'm trying to get to is nobody on either end, no matter if you're the spiritual person, the person who's in the LGBTQIA plus community, Christian, polytheist, whatever the case may be, you're not just gonna believe. Like I said, we all believe that we're right. Case in point, right? People. Right. Yeah. You don't go into making a discussion unless you feel that way and confidently.
Yep.
What is going to break down and allow people to hear facts or things that aren't facts anymore is the consistency of love throughout the conversation, getting people back to see, listen, even if we don't agree, that doesn't mean I can't love you. Right. And here's how. Because if society is telling you, if you come to this conclusion and say, you have to believe this in order to love me, and you don't believe this, you don't love me. Mm-hmm. You're going to let that person walk, or you're going to say, hey, I argue my point and I'm fair, I'm good. No, because the mindset has already been fostered. Like Corey said, sticks and stones may break up, but we're past that era now. We're past it because people didn't push back with love. Right. Either they push back or just like, you're soft, deal with it. Mm-hmm. Or they just was like, I'd rather be quiet because I'm afraid of cancel culture. No, somebody needs to be saying, listen, these are the things that I've shown that are love. Here's my source. I always tell people I'm pro-Bible. You do not have to agree with that, but this is me. This is my moral compass. Right. This is where I stand. Right. Here are my verses on love, as I got cut off with 1 Corinthians 13, but your point was very excellent, I have to say. Where I can demonstrate things in my day-to-day grind that I can say, okay, here's how I know I'm showing love, right? Mm-hmm. I may not lay down my life, which is a form of love, but here are some other things that I can show about that I'm being loving. If I can do those things, provide that information to people who are on the other side of the table in my debate with, then I begin to start shaping their minds, start passing this information on to other people, and then we combat this type of idea that either you agree with me or we're done. Mm-hmm. We're never going to get anywhere with the person who's silent or the person who's just like, you're soft, deal with it. Yeah. So for me, we don't win anything with all our facts unless we're willing to say, you know what, as you stated, you know what, shred me for my comment that I made, but watch how I deal with you outside this podcast. Absolutely. Watch how I deal with you at my job. Watch how I deal with you. I'm going to be fair. Yep. I'm going to be honest. Yep. Those are the things that you look at huge, but those are the things that you look at for love. Like, I mean, I still haven't went to the verse yet. You cut me.
No, we ain't not. We got that.
You cut me up. We didn't get it because I really like this.
Listen.
Charity.
Read it.
Charity or love suffereth long.
Love suffereth long and is kind.
Love envieth not.
Is not puffed up.
Yes. It does not behave itself
unseemly or improper.
Correct. It seeketh not her own, mm-hmm. meaning your own self.
Right. You're not selfish.
Is not easily provoked.
Right. Doesn't get angry very quickly. I got to work on that.
Yeah, you do.
I got to work.
But it doesn't mean you're not loving because you still do these other things, Steve. You thinketh no evil. Okay,
Eee.
you rejoice not in iniquity.
Right.
Well, hold on. Iniquity would have a standard.
Mhm.
So then we have to figure out what the standard is. Once again, if the source is telling us here, we have to figure out what is iniquity. So we can't rejoice in something. So what if you, quick sidebar, what if you're telling me to agree with something that is an iniquity? Then if I do it, then I'm rejoicing in that.
Yeah.
Then I couldn't be loving.
But that also would go to doesn't rejoice in iniquity, meaning vengefully, meaning
Oh yes,
after
yes.
that person I disagree
Yes.
with and we separate,
Yes.
I'm not going to rejoice in thinking how I could get back at them or do
Yes,
something
and
dirty
do
to them
something wrong.
to let them know that
because that
I
same
won't rejoice in that.
Yeah, because that next piece says, "But rejoiceth in the truth."
Right.
So you're right. I wouldn't look to say like you did me dirty. Now
Beareth all things, hopeth all things, believeth all things, and what else?
and endureth all things. Did you say
Yeah,
that?
yeah.
Okay. It never fails. When you look at all of this, it may seem like a quick 7 verses to you. That talks about your life at home.
It's in depth, yes.
That talks about your life at work. That talks about society. I don't
Yep.
care where you go, vacation,
Yep,
trips, your
yep,
family.
Yep.
Are you doing these things? Because people believe I gave money to the poor.
And that's
But-
it.
No, that don't mean that you love. I gave you I understand all mysteries. I can prophesy. I can
Move
preach.
on.
I can give you the gospel.
Vomiting.
Guess what, Steve? Doesn't mean that you love.
I agree.
So when we address intolerance of love, you still have to be able to show how you're still being loving in the midst of all that.
Comment?
Chris says people want victimhood, the idol of rejection, and the attention that
Yeah.
emerges.
I could see that. I definitely
Yes.
could see that.
Well, I think we fostered that though.
Yeah.
We fostered that
Mhm.
victim.
There's a
Right.
couple of things that I want us to go into, but we can't right now. We've been on. This has been a very good.
56, yeah.
This has been a very good subject. I wish we could talk more. We might pick this up a little bit more later. This has been a great conversation. But to the point that we're trying to make tonight, the intolerance of love. There's so much that has to be unpacked, and we have to bring back to the forefront. But the thing is ultimately is that to say that I love you does not mean I have to agree with you. To say that I love you does not mean I have to tolerate everything that you do. But when I do say that I love you, there should be an expectation of me always giving that individual dignity, respect, value. I'm always going to be fair. And that's a huge piece. Like you have to really dig deep in your heart to think about always making sure you're fair with that person as much as you're fair with somebody that you get along with really well, right? There's a lot of challenges there, but those are the things that as Christian believers, we need to be able to reevaluate our perception of love, help others to understand the perception of love, but then at the same time, consistently behave in a manner that is according to our code of conduct, which is the word of God. So that way we can be able to validate what we believe because we're following up with substantial evidence of practicing what we preach.
I think he was good today. You didn't go, I know you jumped on that comment, but it was actually well articulated. You moderator, you had something?
Any more? So we really appreciate you guys. Listen, every Tuesday live, we're on here. We love the feedback that all of you gave. It was awesome. Just chime in. And again, we're here to dialogue. Jack and I have a very, very strong belief to the word of God, to acknowledging that Christ is our Savior. We believe in his death, burial, and resurrection. We believe in the total gospel message. But at the same time, we love having dialogue. We love to be able to discuss current topics and discuss the current state of the church and the world and help people maybe navigate closer to having an understanding about the Bible and recognize its validity and its power and its inspiration, being able to work through some hard discussions and questions and thoughts and come to a logical conclusion that Jesus Christ is Lord. So we appreciate y'all.
And I see your comment, Pastor Arm. Mr. Arm says, I like Pastor Foreman's explanation. On point. Agreed. All right. So make sure you go to whatever platform you're on. Make sure you go to the Righteous Unity YouTube channel. Make sure you like this video. Make sure you share this video. I think it's very good to be able to show people that love shouldn't be measured in one screenshot, shouldn't be measured in one podcast video. It shouldn't be measured in a 5 to 10 minute discussion. How is your day-to-day life? Can people see that everyone is being treated fairly, equally, and that you value them as a human being? And so hopefully you can take those points with you and share this to other people. And we'll see you back next Tuesday. And if you have any other topics you want us to discuss, hit us up and we'll make sure that we discuss this next time. God bless. See you next Tuesday.
God bless y'all.